Hello and welcome to Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Carolyn Everson, former executive at Facebook, now senior advisor at Permira, which is a large investment advisor in the UK. We'll get to that in a second, and a board member at Coca-Cola, Under Armour, and the Walt Disney Company. Carolyn, how are you doing?
I'm great, Andy. It's great to see you, and thanks for having me.
So maybe we should start with, it is Permira, right? That's how I pronounce it.
It is, yes. It's a private equity firm.
Okay, tell us about it.
And so I've been in operating roles for almost 30 years, and I turned 50 about a year and a half ago, and I decided that I would think about a new chapter in life, which was more of a portfolio approach, which was a name that I didn't even know existed. But as I started to explore different options, I heard from many people that they were people that I really admired that had put together a portfolio of different things to do professionally. And it was really enriching. And so that was very inspirational to me. I started looking at the private equity world just broadly to understand it. And Permira was a firm that I had not heard of. And turns out they're very large, one of the top firms in the world. They've kept a fairly low profile, but an extraordinary culture. I loved the people that I met there. I found my values to be consistent with them, which was important. They were global, which appealed to me because I love global businesses, and they're very focused on growth. That's actually one of their things, is to take companies sort of from good to great. And so when you put all of that together, it was a great fit for me. So I'm a senior advisor, just in my first few months of doing it. And they've put me on 3 private boards already, and I'm enjoying the work. It's a phenomenal firm so far.
I want to talk a little bit about technology because
Yes.
obviously you worked in Silicon Valley, even though you're on the East Coast, but you worked
Well,
at Facebook for a number of
that
years.
was where my house
Right,
was.
yes.
I lived more on United Airlines, I think, than anywhere else.
Right, got it. And what your time at Facebook, was obviously during the tremendous growth period at the company. Now, though, people are saying that the promise of technology is not what people suggested it might be. The metaverse, AR, crypto. Do you think that the tech industry has sort of hit a wall in the sense that it's not delivering for consumers or maybe even society right now?
So I have an interesting relationship with sort of technology companies and just technology in general. I gravitate towards it because I love innovation. I love entrepreneurship. And if you look at just, historically, technology has completely advanced sort of society, and in many ways has allowed people to live longer and to communicate more effectively and to be connected. And so there's many, many amazing things about it. But there's also been some really disappointing things on what technology can do. I mean, there's the implications of what it's done on a human level, certainly that we can talk about. But I think what has happened in the last 18 months is there's been sort of a reckoning in many tech companies, not all, but in many, that perhaps growth at all costs is no longer a strategy that's acceptable. The market clearly turned from growth to actually profitable growth. And I think there's been certain key factors, such as Elon coming into Twitter and letting go 80% of its workforce, that has really called into question other technology companies. Did they grow too quickly? Did they have too many pet projects going on? And how do you rein it in and drive more profitable growth? And it's been very disappointing. I think from a financial return perspective, one of the things I used to say to my team at Facebook is, don't ever forget that someone's grandmother owns our stock when I was at Facebook. And the message, what I was trying to instill, is that it's not just about what I would call the quarterly ATM that occurs in these technology companies, where people make really good salaries. Every quarter they get their equity grants, and people are living, generally quite well. And there was a big market wipeout for a lot of people. And I thought through my own mother, who had bought Facebook stock and who depends on her 401k. And I watched that just get depleted and depleted over the last 18 months. Now there's been some recovery. But I have some concerns with the way the companies have evolved, for sure. But at the end of the day, I'm still so pro technology, and I'm an optimist at heart about the value it delivers.
technology, the cycles seem to go like this, up and down and up and down and to the right. So is it your thinking then that there's still, this is maybe the trade of our lifetime in the sense that, these companies will continue to grow and this is just part of the cycle?
Oh gosh, I wish I could have a crystal ball and tell you that is this the trade of a lifetime. I think what is happening right now is that Mark Zuckerberg talks about the year of efficiency. You're seeing other companies in the technology space having thousands of people getting laid off. Expenses are being scrutinized in a way that weren't in the past, and that will long term make those companies healthier. Right? It's like never waste a crisis. So the market reacted, didn't want growth at all costs. It wanted profitable growth. Companies are getting things a little bit in order, but they are going to have to show growth, and they're going to have to show growth in their revenue metrics and their user engagement metrics. You can't cost cut your way to having a stock and a chart that goes up and to the right. It's never been done. That's actually one of the things that attracted me to Permira, because a lot of investment focus is coming in and just gutting companies and cutting costs and laying people off to improve the margins. But I'm always interested in growth, but profitable growth.
Right. And so Permira is going to be trying to buy companies and investing in them rather than just cutting costs?
Yes, they are very much about growing companies, which is what attracted me to their philosophy, as opposed to going in and just doing financial engineering.
Right. I want to switch over and ask you about boards, and you
Yes.
are on those 3 high-profile public companies. You're on some nonprofits as well, or some
Yes.
private boards.
Yes.
So let's just take those 3 public
Mm-hmm.
companies for starters: Coke, Disney, and Under Armour. What's going on right now? What are the common denominators, Carolyn, when it comes to governance? What's top of mind for boards, maybe that exists at all 3 of those companies?
Yes, well, it's a privilege to serve on those 3 boards, and to see executives like Bob Iger, James Quincy at Coca-Cola, and we have a new CEO, Stephanie Linnartz, at Under Armour. And in some ways, you might think there are similarities. Of course, there are, with the typical governance around committees and areas of focus around making sure we have very responsible compensation philosophies that both ISS and Glass Lewis agree with, that we're very responsive to any shareholder concerns about that. So there are some commonalities from a governance perspective, for sure. But I think the more broader topics, there's even more commonalities than I expected, right? There's a relentless focus on understanding the consumer and consumer behavior. How are consumers receiving and consuming content? How are they creating it? How can you influence their behavior to either market your service? And so we spend a lot of time trying to understand consumer behavior in all 3 different contexts. The geopolitical climate impacts all 3 of the companies that I happen to be involved in, understanding what's happening in China and with Taiwan and the ripple effect of that. How fast is the Chinese economy going to recover from COVID? And understanding even Russia-Ukraine war and what that did sort of overnight for some of the companies that I'm on the board of. So the geopolitical landscape is very much a topic. I would also say societal landscape is very much as well. When companies should weigh in on social issues and not. What's the filter? How do you best do that? Is a common denominator I would see across all 3 as well.
Yeah, and obviously Disney is a part of that, and maybe without getting into it, must have been fascinating watching that go on, the changing of the CEO and all those discussions. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall there.
Well, my first board meeting was Bob Iger's first day back. So I was not involved in the decision to bring Bob Iger back, but obviously to work with a world-class sort of a CEO in his own league has been tremendous, and I'm certainly getting a tremendous amount of learning from being in that environment, and it's great to have him back.
So the other boards you're on, talk to us about that.
Yes. So I have the 3 public boards, and then I'm now on 4 private boards. 3 of which are through my Primera advisory work. The Knot, which is essentially a wedding business,
Yeah,
digital
sure.
wedding business. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I actually, when I was at Primedia, like early days of my career, I was working in the bridal online space with Modern Bride. So it's kind of come full circle, and it's great to see how that company has expanded over the years. A company by the name of Comment Sold, which is really trying to help individuals and small businesses do live selling, which is extremely popular in Asia, starting to become more popular in the West. And then a third business called GWI, which provides insights to marketers. So I have those 3 private through Primera, and then I made a personal investment in a company called Unitary. The female founder there, Sasha Hako, was extremely impressive, and she and her partners have built a technology to using AI to understand video content, which is extremely important for the trust and safety of platforms as well as brand safety. And of course, I lived that when I was at Facebook, seeing how marketers were very sensitive, rightly so, about where their brands were appearing and the type of content on these platforms. And so early stage company, but I'm excited to be part of that. And then I have a series of nonprofit boards as well.
You are busy.
So
I
I'll
want-
tell you though, it's funny, people ask me that. Compared to working in an operating role, I still feel like I have a lot of capacity, and I know that sounds odd, but when you are on the hook, and I was with over 5,000 people at Facebook and over 80 plus billion in revenue and operating in every country, I mean, that's a 24/7 role. And so even with the portfolio that I've put together, it's I'm learning a ton because I'm with really early stage entrepreneurs all the way to companies that have been around for 100 plus years. But I still feel like I have capacity.
I don't see how, but I believe you. But compared to the other situation.
Yes, compared to that.
Right, compared to that. I want to ask you about something, shift gears and ask you about something very personal to you, Carolyn. That is your daughter, Taylor,
Yes.
was in a very seriously injured in playing lacrosse
Yes.
for Yale University. And I know you have some strong feelings about the game and safety, and I want to ask you about that.
No, I appreciate the question. So, as background, both my twins play Division I lacrosse. Taylor is at Yale, Kennedy's at Duke. I played growing up. I wasn't good enough to play in college, but lacrosse is a sport that's near and dear to our family. We care deeply about it, and I think it's tremendous for young girls to get involved in it. Taylor was cross-checked pretty viciously in a game against Stony Brook University on February 25th. And the other player not only sort of hit her with a horizontal stick, but sort of drove it up. Her kidney was split in half, her left kidney. She had a partially collapsed lung, wound up needing a blood transfusion, 2 angiograms, 14 days in the hospital, 11 of which were in the ICU, and sort of the list goes on and on. Never should have happened. And as I looked at her in the ICU, and I'll tell you, those first 48 hours were really more traumatic than I can explain. It sort of puts everything in perspective, right, about what's important. I thought to myself, okay, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And I sort of almost put my business hat on, like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Like, if this was a problem in a company, I'd want to understand how it happened, why it happened, and how to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I've uncovered a lot of holes in the ecosystem. The rules are not as clear as they need to be. The NCAA needs to clarify cross-checks to the mid part of the body. They've been very focused on the head and neck, but not on the body. That's an area. The officials need better training. They need to be evaluated better. The girl that hit Taylor wasn't even called for a foul, even though she hit Taylor after she scored. There are some coaches that are teaching this kind of behavior and are pushing the envelope. And so the system needs to really decide. Women's lacrosse is at a crossroads because it either is going to be played more and more like men's, which is allowing kind of hitting, although believe it or not, what hit Taylor, that cross-check wouldn't have been allowed in men's either. But if it's going to be played like that, then they have to wear protective gear. Women wear goggles. That's it. Taylor happens to wear a helmet because she's had a couple of concussions, and that was one of the criteria. We said if you want to keep playing, you have to wear a helmet. But there was no protection for a hit like that. So we're doing everything we can to raise awareness, really push for solutions here, I never want to see another family go through what we did, but it turns out other families have. Some maybe not as serious as Taylor, but there's been lacerated kidneys, stomach, bladder. People have reached out now that we've gone public with what's happened, and we are not going to just walk away from this. The game needs to be safer frankly for everybody.
Well, good luck with that
Thank
effort.
you. I appreciate it.
Carolyn Everson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.